Hey everybody. I don't know when the last time I was on has been. Um, Made a couple of videos and decided not to upload them. Um, but anyway, I'm just babbling here. So, what is the title of today's video? Surviving BPD Relationships. Narcissism, narcissistic abuse versus healthy ego. What is the difference? And that is because a viewer, I don't know if they've been watching the channel for a while or not, but a viewer asked pretty much that question. And before I go into that, let me just repeat once again. This channel is here to help people recover. I want to do everything in my power to help anybody and everybody find their true self, their true identity, to find health, happiness, balance, peace, love. I want everybody to find that. My experience in this life is that I am someone who survived an extremely toxic relationship with an incredibly beautiful, healing, wonderful, intelligent, creative, sensitive, spiritual person who happened to have gone through some pretty awful trauma in her infanthood and childhood, resulting in her, at the time that I was with her, being an untreated, undiagnosed person with borderline personality disorder. And it was the most destructive and toxic experience condensed of my life. We were only together for, less than half a year. But the amount of intense, toxic, as it turns out, abuse that I went through was the most toxic experience of my life, and that's saying a lot. I'm in a 12-step recovery program myself, been there for 39 years. And I grew up in an alcoholic family with a borderline tendency mother and a narcissistic. I'm certain my brother has NPD. And so I'm not a stranger to difficult, challenging, extremely psychologically, emotionally toxic experiences. And yet that relationship was the single most condensed toxic experience of my life. And so on this channel, what I want to do is I want to help people like me who've been through that. And the main message is you're not crazy. What you've been through has been incredibly toxic, and you fell into a black hole, into another dimension where you have an understanding of what reality is, and your reality did not transfer over there. And so I want to be something that people can understand, grab onto, and feel like that that they can find a place to land. You're floating and you don't understand what happened to you. You might not even know where you are or who you are. And so I started making this channel as soon as I got out, as I was coming out of that relationship, not with any intentions of creating a popular channel on YouTube. I just needed to talk. I've been in 12-step work long enough that I had a good idea of what I needed to do, but I was in so much pain and I was so alone right after that. I needed to make some videos to talk to myself. So in those first videos that you see with a different background, I think I have a beard, I'm really making those videos for me. I'm literally counseling myself. Now, I can get away with that because I've been doing this stuff for almost 40 years. I did have a sponsor as well that I worked with, and I do have a therapist, and I do have a group of people that I work with. So I just dove into that and did the work, which if you click the join button, I tell you exactly what that is to heal. So this channel is for those people, and I created this channel because as I was trying to find information, I didn't know what borderline personality disorder was. And I literally had remembered, I was trying to figure out as I was coming out, even before when I was in the middle of it, I was trying to figure out what the heck is happening to me. I know people, I understand people, I know how emotions work, I know even really damaged, toxic people, I know how they function, and I have no idea what's happening with this person. I don't understand what's going on, and I feel like I'm dying inside. And I had remembered somebody mentioning the word borderline personality disorder, and I looked it up, and sure enough, that was it. And then it all made sense. And then I tried to get some health and some healing by looking online, on YouTube. And I couldn't find anything that was helpful. I found a lot of channels by psychologists talking about borderline personality disorder very, from a distance, very, antiseptically, and that didn't help me. I found a bunch of YouTube channels of people calling themselves empaths who were really, when I looked into it, were extremely untreated, damaged, angry codependents who were some of the most angry, judgmental, and unconscious people I've ever run into. And I understand why. And of course, there was the channels made by borderlines talking about what it's like for them. That didn't help me. And so people who have gone through this, who've been in a romantic relationship with somebody who has a cluster B personality disorder, there's really no place to go because, you're not encouraged by the mental health community to say, hey, yes, you've been through a real damaging, toxic experience. Here's where you need to go. Here's where you need to go to get help. Nobody's doing it. The borderlines, and I'm grateful that they have it, borderlines are, here, you can go get some therapy, do some DBT. So they're guided towards where they need to go if they decide they want to get healed. But the partners, there's nothing. There's nobody saying, hey, I know you feel all by yourself. I know you feel that you've now slipped into this empty universe and you're the only one that exists and nobody understands what you've been through. You try to explain it to them and they think you're, come on, get over it. Or you have been shamed out of your feelings for so long that you don't even try to tell people what you're feeling. Because in order to survive that relationship, you just had to not have any feelings. And not treat anything, that as though there's any consequences to anything. So that's what this channel is about. As it turns out, there's a lot of borderlines who have found the channel, and some of them seem to be enjoying what I'm saying. It's not my intention. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a mental health professional, and I don't have borderline personality disorder. The conclusions that I've come to when I talk about, I say borderline's this, and I say things very magnanimously about what they are and how they feel. That's really my best guess at what happens. As it turns out, I'm right most of the time. In fact, sometimes I'm really, really right. Sometimes I think I know BPD better than the people who have it. Some of the time. And that's good news for you, because if you were with a borderline for any length of time, I can promise you, you don't have the first clue what borderline personality disorder is. Because if you did, you would not keep trying to make the relationship work. But because you keep trying to make it work, it's because first and foremost, you truly do not understand what is happening. You don't understand what the borderline is thinking, what they're feeling, what their intentions are, and what their experience is. You have no clue. And so when you get out of the relationship and or you are discarded and it becomes clear to you that you are never going to get back in, that they're never going to come back for you, that this time it was over for good, then you'll see these people start to get very, very angry, and they'll gravitate very, very quickly to the super empath channels, where they'll be talking about how they're a heyoka and they are a super empath and they've gone supernova, and they'll spend all their time talking about how to destroy and defeat the narcissist. That's what's in store for you if you do not get some actual healing. And so I try and share with people my story. And I did. I completely 100% healed from that relationship. I didn't think I was going to. You might even hear me in some of my earlier videos, you might even hear me say, I think I'm broken. I don't think I'll ever be able to love again. And I really felt that way. But I did the work that I talk about here when you click the join button on this channel. I talk about the 3 things that I did. I did those 3 things like my life depended on it, because I knew that it did. I knew that if I did not heal, the ongoing damage, because the damage doesn't stop just because you're out of the relationship. Once you get into that alternate universe, that alternate universe gets inside of you and it starts to create a life of its own. And just because the relationship has ended, or the relationships never end, just because you have ended or the contact between you has ended, the damage continues to happen and it continues to get worse. And it literally has the power to kill you. The disorder that the people with borderline personality disorder unfortunately are victims of, that disorder also is destroying you. And so the first victim is the borderline, and the second victim is the partner of the borderline, and everybody suffers. So I can tell you how to heal if you're willing to do some specific work. But what I wanted to say is that you don't end up in these relationships out of nowhere. So you may think you were just going along your life, pedaling away and enjoying life, and everything was hunky-dory, and you somehow, some way got involved with this person, and you don't understand, they did it to me, they manipulated me, they seduced me, I didn't see it coming. But the truth is that it was inside of you. There was a piece of you that was in there. There was a piece of that darkness that was in there that needed to be fully brought to life. And the only person that could do that is the cluster B. Nobody can do it. Nobody can bring that out in you like a cluster B personality disordered person. So let's answer the question. What is narcissistic abuse versus healthy ego? So to look at that, I am going to look at a comment that was left on the channel by somebody, obviously. I don't know how long this person has been on the channel, but it's an excellent comment. If you leave a comment on my channel that I find to be very important and worthy of discussion, it means that you're not the only person that thinks this way. It means that I've thought that way, and many people on here also think that way. And so I'm going to analyze, I'm going to surgically slice it apart and analyze it, and unfortunately you may not like the conclusions that I come to, but if you're able to listen to me and put your ego aside, since we're talking about narcissistic ego, if you have the ability to put your ego aside, if you happen to be the person who wrote this comment, and if you listen to what I say, I'm telling you, I know what it takes to heal from the relationship completely. And here's what healed from the relationship means. It means that you don't think about it anymore. You don't wake up in the middle of the night with a hole in your gut, wondering, where are they? Is everything okay? Are they thinking about me? You don't jump whenever the phone rings or whenever your text goes off, wondering, oh my God, is that them? You never have to go through that experience of, when the text does go off and you have these two simultaneous reactions of, oh my God, it's her. And the other one is, oh my God, it's her. I remember that. I remember the thing going off and going, oh, fuck. And, oh, fuck. And it's just horrible. Half of you says, don't pick up the phone. The other half says, I'll die if I don't pick up the phone. You'll never have to go through that again. You'll never have to feel sad like you've missed out on the most beautiful love experience of your life. You'll never have to think about the pain. You won't be angry. You won't feel broken. You won't have any of the things that you're carrying with you now. So many people say, yeah, I'm over it now, but I sometimes still think about what would have happened. I sometimes wonder if she still thinks about me. Mike, do you think that they'll ever realize that they've hurt me? Do you think that they still love me? You will never be thinking those things. If you're asking those questions, you are not healed. Healed means you forget. Not like you're pushing it down, but you literally forget. Had it not been for this channel, I wouldn't be even talking about it anymore. The only reason I talk about it is because after 2 months of doing the work every day, doing those 3 things that I talk about here, doing those 3 things every single day like my life depended on it, I forgot. I got back into my life and I started enjoying and blah, blah, blah. And then I started getting these emails from YouTube. All these people were subscribing. And oh my God, I totally forgot about that channel. And I went and looked back on this channel and there, I was getting like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 subscriptions a day. It's calmed down considerably since then. And people were begging me, please make more videos. You're saving my life. Nobody's told me this was... So that's why I stay here. That's the only reason I stay here. That's healed. Healed is you literally forgot. You remember the worst cold you ever had? You probably don't. But you remember the last time you had like the worst flu where you thought you were going to die and it was the most... And then you healed from it, and then a month, 6 months later, you completely forgot about it. And somebody says, do you remember last time you got the flu? Let me think. I think I had it, and I think it was pretty bad, but I can't remember. I think it was a year ago. I don't know. That's what you're going to say when people ask you, what about that crazy girl you were dating that messed you up so bad? What was her name again? I can't remember her name. Was her name Mary or Jane? Was it Trisha? Yeah, I think I remember who you're talking about. If you want that, I can tell you how to heal. All right, so let's get to the question here. This person says, first of all, thank you for this video. So the video in question was BPD relationships. The key to recovery from narcissistic abuse is to look at your own narcissism. All right, you can watch that to find out what that is. I won't tell you. I won't go into that. But he asked a really great question. First off, let me just say I totally relate to the cognitive dissonance this person is experiencing. Cognitive dissonance is a really great word. Some people use it in a way to euphemize their horrific pain, but it's a good word because it's dissonant. You have two, like dissonant music, the notes don't work. You've got 2 levels of thinking that aren't merging, and so your brain is working overtime to try to get these 2 things to go together, and they won't. It's cognitive dissonance, and it means that you are experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. It means that you're in a state of trauma. Your brain is broken. It's the record is skipping. You remember records? The record is skipping, and it won't go past. It's dissonant. It's a really painful place to be, and people spend decades, if not their whole life there. There are some people that spend their whole life there. Cluster Bs are a good example. All right, so person says, thanks for this video and the rest you've made so far. He says, my question is based on the phrase, quote, you like their narcissism as long as it serves your narcissism, unquote. Now, I don't know if he's quoting me. It's possible I might have said something like that in context, but the truth is that that is a misunderstanding of what narcissism means. Let's keep going. He goes on to ask, so aren't we all in relationships for our own egoistic reasons? What is a healthy relationship? Okay, there's two things I don't like about that first sentence. First off, this is my thing. I got a thing about language and spelling and grammar, and there is no word as egoistic. Drives me crazy. Egotistic. The second thing that bugs me about that is that there's a judgment against having an ego. And there is an assumption that ego equals narcissism, and it doesn't. Ego actually just is the Greek and Latin word for I, me, I. Ego. Ego emi in Greek means I am. Ego. Actually, the interesting thing is that people with cluster B personality disorders, what is the major problem that they can never recover from? The one thing that will always stay broken in them is that they do not have an ego. They don't have an identity. That's why they have, especially narcissists, why they have no empathy. Because in order to have empathy, you must first have an ego. If you don't have an ego, there's nothing to empathize with. The tool that says, oh, I know what that feels like when that happens to me, and that would happen to you, and if I can imagine being you, that would feel like that. Oh, that doesn't feel good. I won't do that to you. That is gone. They don't relate to you. In fact, you don't exist. Because for them, everything is projection. Everything they see in you is them projecting onto you. So borderlines listening to me, please don't take this the wrong way. Don't get your feelings hurt, because I could go into it just today and yesterday. I just got onslaughted on the channel with comments from borderlines. Interesting, some positive and some critical. But one of the main defenses that borderlines want to have about what happens to them is that they say, no, we're not psychopathic. We actually are filled with empathy. In fact, they'll go on to say that they have more empathy than you do because they feel it more. But they don't understand that the majority of that is projection. They have strong, intense feelings that they project onto you, and they see themselves in you. And when they happen to be in that spot of the pendulum swing, when they're on the positive side of the pendulum swing, what they see is themselves wanting to be loved, and so they pour their love onto you. Now, we all do this to some degree, but that's pure projection. How do you know it's projection? Because they can drop it in an instant. Real love is when the feeling is gone, you still act with love. That's true love. The feeling of love is only good insofar that it gives you the ability to dig down deep into your ego, your identity, and create an ongoing narrative about the other person. If you don't have an ego, that intense feeling has no place to take root, and once the feeling is gone, so goes the empathy. So borderlines listening to me, you want to tell me, no, Mike, stop saying that I don't have empathy. I have so much empathy. I cry for everybody. I cry for the whole world. You do until you split, and then you don't have it anymore. And that's not empathy. That is narcissistic projected emotion. Nothing wrong with that. We all have it. It's one of the most beautiful things about relationships. It is a tool that our body and our brains use to keep us connected. But it's meaningless if it doesn't result in consistent behavior and change of the self-narrative. If that never happens, it's meaningless. You can't take credit for it. It's like masturbation or drugs. It's there and it's gone. Poof. Don't take that personally. I'm just telling you the truth. The truth is that for people who have borderline personality disorder, there is a way that you can recover. I don't know what it is. I've heard about it, and my understanding is if you work your ass off, like work your ass off for 10 years, you can then learn how to manage your symptoms, meaning you can manage your behavior, which is really what true empathy must result in. True empathy and true love must result in a certain consistent kind of behavior. So then you can be in a place where you can be in a narcissistic, disempathic place where you have no feelings or you have negative feelings. But once you have the ability to act as though you do have positive feelings, your partner will think you love them. And your partner will thank you for it. Whereas you will feel, I hate this person, I wish they would just disappear. That's love. When you have those feelings, but you take the other action, then you can say that you're a loving person. Then you can say that you have empathy. Until then, you're doing your best, of course, as the rest of all of us are. So this person makes the mistake. This person says, aren't we all in relationships for our own egotistic reasons? What is a healthy relationship? Doesn't it still serve the narcissism of both parties involved? Therefore, are people with disorders more healthy in their relationships because, spelled B-C-U-Z, because they know exactly what they want out of it and don't settle for less? Like, say, two narcissists. Okay, now he comes up, by the way, this example he's going to create doesn't exist anywhere. He's creating a story in his mind of what he thinks is a narcissist. Anyway, this example doesn't exist, but maybe you've come up with this same example in your head. Therefore, are people with disorders more healthy in their relationships because they know exactly what they want out of it and don't settle for less? Like, say, two narcissists, one old and with money and one younger with looks, and they both are happy because first one needs someone with looks and second needs someone with money. That's not how it works. There's a lot more going on than just that. And you make it sound like, oh, I have money and I'm narcissistic. And the other one says, yeah, and I'm hot and I'm narcissistic, so I'll give you my body and you give me your money, and now we're both happy. No. That scenario does not end up with two people being happy. Goes on to say, let's see what else. Same way with borderlines. If you put strict, and this is him talking now, if you put strict and solid boundaries and they know exactly what of their actions make you mad, they won't, hopefully. That is also not true. I don't know where you came up with that. If you've been with a borderline, then you know that you can lay down all the boundaries you want and it's not going to accomplish anything. In fact, it'll make them split on you. It's not going to make them go, oh, okay, that makes you mad, I won't do that. That's not going to happen. We could get into why, but I won't do that at the moment. He says, all of that is just theoretical, is what you mean to say, but you say theoretic. That is just theoretical. I truly don't know anything, even though I went through a whole bunch of material and info. Well, I don't blame you. I went through a whole bunch of material info, and I also didn't learn anything from that either. But at this point, he says, I'm really questioning what the hell is a regular, normal, healthy relationship. the ones I see around that are supposed to be healthy, there's a ton of things I don't like about those. It doesn't say what they are. That's interesting right there. And those I would like don't seem to be rational enough. Like, for example, why do I need to have someone serve me on a regular basis and stuff? What? But seems like that's what it used to be before women had rights. They pretty much had to do what the man says. Doesn't seem too rational. Why would they need it? But also, the more accomplished you become, the more you want things your way, and it truly seems better to just be by yourself with some friends you use for different things, but at least you know everything is going your way. I'm so confused. Oh my God, I think there's no such thing as relationship at all. We, the people, made it all up. So, my friend, here's what I know about you. You have been through a very traumatic, toxic childhood. I don't have to know anything. I don't know the specifics. It sounds like there's some serious mommy issues, which would make sense. That's how men, straight men, end up with borderline women. We've got serious mommy issues. But I can tell from this that you have not. And as you say, you don't even know what a healthy relationship is. You can't even see them because, as we all do, you are projecting onto your world. So when you look out onto your world, you're not going to see healthy, loving relationships because you've never had any. So you're going to see all these things, and in your mind, you're going to come up with these two-dimensional relationship scenarios that do not exist. And then when you look for those superficial two-dimensional relationships in three-dimensional reality, they don't line up. And as you say, I see what looks like healthy relationships, but there's a lot of things about them I don't like. That I would love to sit you down and ask you just question after question, because there's just so much in that. That tells me that there's so much going on in your unconscious, so much damage you went through as a kid. And I'm not judging you for that. I did too. So first off, do you like their narcissism as long as it serves your narcissism, quote, unquote. That's not how that works. That's not narcissism. You're confusing self and desire and healthy selfishness for narcissism. And narcissists are selfish. So all narcissists are selfish, but not all selfish people are narcissists. All narcissists are grandiose, but not all grandiose, egotistical people are narcissists. And it's important to understand this because what you're talking about, which is, of course, this is just a quote, but what you really mean to say is, so as long as I'm getting what I want and getting what I want gives the other person what they want, then it all evens out. This would be like a good sexual encounter. Your selfishness, your desire to meet your physical stimulations and desire, the movements that you make in order to bring that to yourself is actually what the other person also wants for their sexual satisfaction. And so here we have two people going after the same selfish ends for themselves, and when they give to themselves, they give to their partner, and everybody's happy. That's what you're talking about. That's not narcissism. Narcissism, if we're talking about NPD, if we're talking about the narcissism that borderlines express, by the way, in case you're unfamiliar with it, modern psychology is coming to the conclusion that borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder are basically the same thing, but they are different expressions of the same psychopathic personality disorder. I love what I heard about somebody, I don't remember who it was, some famous psychologist said that borderlines are failed narcissists. What that means is that the narcissist, the person who has NPD, was damaged at such an early age in their childhood, in their infanthood, that in order to survive the horrific trauma, neglect, whatever the hell it was, they created this firewall of protection that never goes away. So there's a firewall a false, perfect ego firewall. It's a false self, and they create it because they don't have a self. And in that scenario, they are perfect, they are God, you are here to serve them. You are inferior, you don't exist, you are a ghost, you are a thing. And so then when that happens, they use everybody as a means to an end, and everybody is there for their own narcissistic pleasure. The borderline, for whatever reason, perhaps the damage happened a little later, and or they were a little more complex or sophisticated in their response. Who knows? The borderline tries to create the perfect ego firewall, and it doesn't. It's the wires don't connect, and it fails. And so what ends up happening is they vacillate between the needy, loving infant and the narcissistic psychopath. That's the pendulum. That is, on the one hand, idealization, and on the other hand, devaluation. They're one or the other. The narcissist has similar scenarios, but they have this firewall that their true self, which doesn't exist, is protected from everything that happens outside of them. The borderline, their firewall is permeable, and they vacillate back and forth between the two. Which is why those of you who have been with your borderline, when they split on you and you look at them, literally the color of their eyes can change. Their face can change. My borderline ex, I mean, you look at 3 or 4 different pictures, I could tell you that these are 4 different people and you would believe me. They literally become different people. And the look in their eyes, and you've had that, when they're splitting on you and they're looking you straight in the eye, there's nobody home. You can see that they don't recognize you. You can see that that whoever's looking back at you doesn't know you. It wasn't the person you were just with. You know that. You've been there. You've seen it. It's a very frightening experience. So narcissism is when you don't have a sense of self. And ego is when you do have a sense of self. So this idea that two people, that everything is narcissism, you're not understanding the difference between narcissism devoid of an identity, which is selfishness, healthy selfishness, and narcissism where the person doesn't have an identity and they don't see you. They have no empathy. One narcissism has empathy because you have a self, you know that person has a self. And if you want to be a good lover, sometimes both people are just totally, completely selfish and they're just going nuts and everybody's happy. But the best is when you are actually giving to your partner. You are there with them. You are there with them empathetically in their joy. And you're reading the signals off of them and giving back and telling them how to give you what you want, which makes them happy. And that's not narcissism. That's generosity. So this tells me, again, this person has been damaged very badly and did not get a lot of good things. It also tells me, there's a lot of stuff in here that tells me this person did not get loved by their mother. Things like the ones I see around that are supposed to be healthy, there's tons of things I don't like about those. And those I would like don't seem to be rational enough. And he says, like, for example, why do I need to have someone serve me on a regular basis? That is a strange thing to say. That's a very narcissistic thing to say. That's the kind of thing a narcissist would say. And that's not what comes to my mind. I mean, sure, I've had those fantasies. Who hasn't? But when I think of a partner and I fantasize about a partner, I don't fantasize about them serving me. So there's a lot of stuff in that. So here's where the narcissism, I'll get away from that comment, I'll leave it alone. There's a lot of stuff in there, but I'll stop unpacking that comment. Basically, the bottom line is this, is that a healthy person must have a strong sense of self. If you have a strong sense of self, however, you will not end up with a borderline or a narcissist. You will know instinctively that something is off about them. You will know that their boundaries are non-existent. And you will know that the love that they're pouring on you, you'll know something isn't right about this. If you don't have a strong ego, you're going to think it's the best thing you've ever experienced. You're then going to think that somehow that science has come to the conclusion that the healthiest thing is to eat popcorn and M&Ms and syrup all day long. That's the healthiest thing, because that's all you're going to get. The love bombing is cotton candy. It is the most superficial, sweetest. I mean, you experience it, but the difference between the love bombing of a narcissist and actual love from somebody who has an ego is that the love that you get from somebody who has an ego, who has a sense of self, it has substance. It feels like, a dinner that has, crispy vegetables and rice and, some tasty meat. It's got some density to it. It nourishes you. The borderline's love washes over you like pancake syrup. There's a part of you that goes, wow, that tasted really sweet and good, but there's something missing. Feels like empty calories. I'm prepared to answer any questions. I do like to take questions if you have them. What else? So let me just go there. I'm kind of running out of things to say. So let's see. Best way to interact with me, if you're new to my channel, is to ask an honest question. That's because, like this, if you just dump your opinion, I'm probably going to want to analyze it. And I'm probably going to show you where your narcissism is, your codependence, something. I'm probably going to find something in that which you may not like. So the best thing to do is to ask an honest question or share an honest feeling. So you say here, and if you have a question, do me a favor, when we've got a lot of people, as you see Jules Ruggieri does, but didn't do it exactly the way that I like, write the word question in all caps so that I can scroll down and see, just look down and see. So question in all caps and then ask your question, and I will be happy to answer it for you. This person says, do you know something about sleeping problems? No, I'm not. Is there anything about this? Do I talk about sleeping problems here? Let's see. Let me finish the question. Since my breakup, I have them for years. I think I'm pretty much over it. Still sleep problems. No, you're not over it. That is a sign of trauma. When you wake up in the middle of the night or you can't go to sleep, that's a sign of trauma. So here are the three things. So let me guess, you haven't done these three things. These are the three things that cured me of the relationship. It hasn't taken away my other problems or my other codependent tendencies in life, but it had definitely 100% cured me of the relationship. It is. The first one is therapy. So you have to go to therapy with a qualified therapist. Actually, the first one is, let's do that. The first one is no contact. You have to go no contact with your borderline. Otherwise, it doesn't count. 2, therapy. 3, work all 12 steps of coda.org or whatever 12-step group you want. Then share with someone else. In other words, somebody else that comes in needing help, you give them the 12 steps. And then number 4 is you have to have some kind of daily meditative practice. Those 3 things is what cured me. Not just sort of got over it, but cured me of that relationship. And I don't have any sleeping problems. I don't have any, whatever that is, that word where you obsession, ruminating. If you have sleep problems, it means that you're not healed. Something's really deeply broken on the inside. I know, because I was there. You wake up in the middle of the night with a start. And something wrong in your gut. What is she thinking? Does she still love me? Maybe you don't have a conscious thought. You just wake up in a start and you're panicked. It means something's broken. You're not healed yet. And by the way, it's really common to want that. When we get sick, that's one of the things that happens. I recently had the stomach flu. I'm here in Australia. There's no COVID, but I started getting, first I had, had a runny poop chute, and then I had upset stomach, and I read, that could be one of the symptoms of COVID. So I kept on telling myself, yeah, no, I'm okay. I don't think I'm sick. I kept on telling myself I was over it. And it took me, a few days before I finally was completely over it. And then, of course, it wasn't COVID. But that's what you're doing, Ludwig. I think I'm pretty much over it, but I still wake up in a sweat in the middle of the night. And you're not over it. It's normal to want to tell yourself you're over it, but you're not. I recommend doing those 3 things. Axel Funk. Hi, Mike. I moved to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico to heal. Well, I'm glad. I'm fully supportive of people going to healing places to heal. That's not all you need to do, but that's a good start. I've been doing the 4 things you said to do every day. It's working. My whole vibe has changed. Very good. There you go. Axel E. Funk. I've been meeting and attracting lots of new friends, and I've been meeting tons of women. Healing from a BPD is possible. There you go. All right. So, staying single and working on myself, gym, side hustles, friendships, hobbies. Thank God she cheated on me. I got out of it. Life is good again. I've clarity. What was I thinking? Yeah, that's the thing. That's a really great question. What were you thinking? This is looking back with clarity and hindsight. When my borderline and I split up, I didn't think I would ever find that kind of love again. And how would I survive without her love? And now I look back on it and I go, wow, there really was nothing there. It was, it was popcorn and M&Ms. It was just nothing. It was pure projection, even on my part. And I know the difference between, what was a real relationship and what was that. So I agree with you. What was I thinking? Well, we weren't thinking. We were projecting. We were coming from our wound. Mine was a combination of my mom and the loss of my fiance who passed away. I was coming from that wound and I was projecting onto the borderline from my wound. So I didn't really see her for who she was. And the love that I thought I was getting wasn't real either. So I understand. What were you thinking? That's a great question. Jules Ruggeri, question. I thought I was crazy. My BPD ex's odor changed with the split. Do you think that's just in my head? No, I don't think so. Tanisha Lulu, question. Mike, what are your thoughts on online dating? What do you think are the best ways to detect a cluster B personality type on an online dating website? So first off, if you're healed, it doesn't matter whether you're dating online or in person. If you're not healed, it doesn't matter if you're dating online or in person. You will still be clueless. If you're not healed, you have a target on your forehead that says all narcissists and borderlines apply here. Healthy people, in the back of the head, healthy people, go away. So, Jules, you want me to tell you, what to look for? It's nonsense. You've been with a borderline or a narcissist, so you know what goes on. What you didn't see it coming then. What makes you think you're going to see it coming now? The thing that will drive the borderline and the narcissist away, like insect repellent, is you being healthy, is you being healed and cured and empowered within yourself. When you are like that, they won't want anything to do with you. It won't matter. And when you run into them, whether it's online or whether it's in person or whether it's first online and then you meet in person, that's happened to me a couple of times. You meet them and then you go, this is a borderline. And then you won't want to be with them and they won't want to be with you. Or if they do, you'll have the ability to go, thank you, it was nice meeting you, but I'm sorry, we're not a match. So Jules, this tells me once again, Tanisha, this tells me once again, you're not healed. Do those 4 things. And when you're healed, you know it. You know it. You know that you're not going to have to worry. You're not going to have to go on to all of these fucking YouTube videos of how to detect the narcissist, the 4 traits, the body language of a narcissist. I mean, you just don't need it. You just don't need it. If you're not healed, no amount of studying all that stuff is going to protect you. If you're not healed, you will think that they're the greatest thing and they will be attracted to you like flies on syrup. What else? Tanisha Lulu, question. Mike, I'm finding it difficult getting over the fact that my mother never loved me. Can you further explain to me how this is the case with a narcissistic mother? Well, I mean, I understand. And this is why you were with your cluster B. This is exactly why. This is why you didn't leave when they kept hurting you over and over and over again. Because of this question. So the good thing is that you're conscious of this question. And the more time that you spend on that question, the less likely you are to chase after a borderline or a narcissist. Because that's what it's all about. Your mother was completely unavailable, did not love you. And the child, in order to survive, has to get mom's love. So bear in mind, this is built into us. This is built in. I think scientists have concluded that by day 5, the infant is already trying to manipulate the parent with sounds, movements, facial expressions in order to manipulate and get the attention and the love of their parents, mom especially. That's built in because as an infant, especially, we're not that far away from being a chimpanzee. We're only 1% difference than a chimpanzee. We're really not any far away from living in caveman times. And back then, people would walk away from infants. If infants couldn't live or survive, they'd walk away from them. They'd leave them on a rock to get picked up by, they had to do that to survive. Happened all the time. So an infant is built in with this survival mechanism to get mommy's love. And if you get mommy's love, that energy then turns into this fuel that you use to build an identity and you become a healthy person. If you never get that, guess what? You are on a hamster wheel. You never get off the hamster wheel. You are in a state of trauma that never goes away. And you are constantly seeking. And because of that, you're wired that way. When you become an adult, you're going to go after those people who will not love you. Because then you have an opportunity to fulfill your deepest desire, which is to finally get that unresponsive, unattainable love, and you think once you get it, you'll be okay. You get it from the average person, it bores the crap out of you. Somebody who actually is there and loving, gives you love, you're like, this is boring. Too much fiber. I need to have just a big, mug of syrup. So you go after somebody who gives you superficial love and attention, and then that kicks in your desire. Then once they split on you, then that really kicks up the desire. You have to chase after them that much harder because you're trying to get mom's love, and mom was never going to love you. If she didn't love you the first 3 years, it's never going to happen. Somebody said you got 3 years to get it right. It's absolutely correct. Borderlines and narcissists are created within the first 3 years. In the first couple of months. I've shared this story. I'll share it again. I met a woman who, her mother adopted an infant at 2 months who had been abandoned. They loved that infant. Loved it as much as everybody else in the family. Everybody else in the family grew up and was very healthy. The adopted child grew up to be a borderline. Why? Because whatever that happened when before the age of 2 months, where that infant was neglected for who knows how long, a day, a couple of days, that's all it took. Broke it. Broke that little baby, and that baby was incapable of understanding and accepting and giving love from that moment on. So it's very real. So you need help. You need to do those 4 things. You need to do those 4 things, hopefully until you can get to the point where you can look back on your mom. That's not an easy thing to do. It's easier to heal from the relationship than it is from your mother. I am still working through unresolved issues with my mom and my narcissistic brother. I'm still working through it. Haven't finished that one yet. But the borderline, completely healed of that. What else? Tanisha Lulu question. Although I am healing and learning more about myself, there are times that I notice that I fall back into my old ways of behaving as a codependent. So again, Tanisha, are you doing the 4 things? There's no finish line here. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm not done. If I can't finish in 40 years, you're not going to be finished either. So it's not this, I'm perfect, then I fall back, and I'm perfect, and I fall back. That's perfectionistic thinking. That's codependent in and of itself. The ironically least codependent thing is to say, I will always be a recovering codependent. I will always have these issues. That's the most honest, most healing place to be. Stop trying to get fixed. It's not going to happen. You will continue to learn and grow, and you will get better. You will get healthier. You will attract healthier people. Your life will get better. And you'll look back and you'll see you've grown hugely compared to where you were, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. But this idea that you're somehow now, you've stepped out of it and you're falling back as a codependent, of course you are. That's going to happen. That's not going to go away. But it does get better. Is it so difficult? Is this normal? Yes. Ciara Bissett. I can't tell if I should take that personally. You say maybe not. Maybe it's a joke. We only differ on 1% from chimps. The ass. How does it that British ended up putting an R in there? I don't think an R was ever in that word. Ass. The word ash, A-S-H, comes from the same word that ass comes from. I don't know why they put an R in there. Some people do that. I'm here in Australia, and some people write ah. Like if you see somebody and you go ah, like A-W or A-H, and people will write A-R-E, and they'll go ah, A-R-E. Anyway, British people do strange things with the English language. But yes, so you're saying I would say the ass is more than 1%. Wouldn't you say? That's got to be more than 1%. Cody Tiemann, have you heard of Richard Grannon? What if I have? What's the point of that question? We're on my channel now. You're talking to me. Why are you asking me about somebody else's channel? I don't see any other questions here, so I guess that's not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot left. It's the middle of the night everywhere in the world. So I really thought I was going to have this really deep, pithy thing to say, but I did. The point is that there is a difference between narcissism and healthy ego. And if you haven't ever had that, like this person, you'll never know the difference, and it will be very confusing. How to have your selfishness and not be a narcissist. But the truth is that people who aren't narcissists have very healthy, selfish boundaries. They know what they want. There's something here I want to point out. He says, borderlines, if you put strict and solid boundaries, then, okay, there's something else. That wasn't it. That was wrong. Of course, I already responded to that. That's totally wrong. He says, therefore, wanting to know, isn't a relationship just two narcissistic people going at it? He says, therefore, are people with disorders more healthy in their relationships because they know exactly what they want out of it and don't settle for less? That couldn't be further from the truth. Because the truth is that narcissists and borderlines don't have the first clue what they want. That's the problem. They know they have this intense need. Need and want aren't the same thing. They have this intense need for love and attention, but once you give it to them, the intimacy that starts to create and the bond that starts to create as a result of the intimacy and the love that you give them, that is what triggers them to turn around and hate you. So the very thing that they ask for is what makes them run away from you or push you away. So they don't know what they want. And he says, and don't settle for less. They completely settle for less. Because to not settle for less would be to let you love them. Would be to stay with the pain and stay with the fear and not leave. And instead come to you and say, I'm really afraid. Can you hold me? Instead of, I hate your guts, you're going to kill me, and start stabbing you with an ice pick. So again, what I see in this person, I'm going to be honest, this person either is extremely codependent, which is not a bad thing. That's the result of some childhood trauma. Or they're teetering. They're teetering on the edge of perhaps being a collapsed narcissist, an inverted narcissist. There are some codependents that are really inverted narcissists. But it's possible to be with a borderline for so long that you end up asking these questions that you really can't tell the difference anymore. And I remember when I was out of my relationship, I felt like a borderline, and I was reacting to people as though I was a borderline, and it really frightened me. And I thought, I'm broken. I'm now a borderline. I've got it. I did the work, and I'm not like that as much anymore, of course. All right. There was something else. I'm going to read another comment, which I thought was really cool, and maybe you'll get something out of it. Again, for some reason, just borderlines have been bombarding the channel. I won't read, because most of them you can understand of them either acting out or attacking me or, trying to get my phone number or, something like that. And here one person says that, that the comments on the channel are going to cause borderlines to commit suicide. I mean, just all the drama. And there's an inverted narcissist I had to block. Let's see, what else? Where was it? It was a really good comment. Let me see if I can find it. I'm not finding it. Where'd it go? Anyway, if I don't find it, I won't share it. But it was somebody who was a borderline was saying that that what I was saying was absolutely correct in terms of what borderlines are and what they go through, what their mind is like. Yep, not finding it. So I won't go searching for it. All right, so that's it. Let's see if there's any last minute questions popping up here. What else? They did invent English? No, they didn't invent English. English is actually a pidgin language. Did you know that? Like, you've heard of pidgin English? English is a pidgin language. It's a conglomeration of a bunch of different things. There used to be Anglo-Saxon, which used to be an actual language that had case endings and all kinds of stuff. It was as complicated and profound as Latin or classical Greek or Sanskrit. And then what ended up happening is that people went to French. Now, French is basically a bunch of German people trying to speak Latin. So it's Pig Latin with a German accent. Sorry, that's all French is. And so you had Anglo-Saxons learning French, and then you had the Vikings who came over and they spoke Old Norse. Old Norse and Old English were very similar. And so they'd come together and they'd get rid of all of the things that they didn't have in common and kept only like this pidgin language. The sentence structure. That's why our sentence structure is, subject, object, verb. It goes in a specific order. Normally languages, you can mix up the order, and what tells you what something is the end of the word. If you don't have case endings, then you have to put things in order. That comes from Anglo-Saxons talking with Old Norse people, and they're talking the words that they can understand mutually intelligibly, they're putting together in these really simple sentence structures. That's what English is. And then in the 1600s, you had people from West London who talked like I do right now. This is 1600s London, upper class. And then you had people who are descended from the Saxons who became Cockney, and they were in southwest London, East London, by the ocean, and they had what we hear as a southern accent. That was the Saxon accent of the 1600s. And then you had Yorkshire people, and those were the people of Boston and places like that. That's how English sounded 400 years ago. And then in the 1700s, the English started changing their pronunciation to differentiate themselves from those uncouth colonials that had just, rebelled. And so they pushed all the sound forward, and then you had people talking like this all the time, you say. And then the Cockney people, which were Southerners, who talked like this here, they tried to push it forward, and you ended up with Cockney. In the middle, you have Australian. Australian is the southern accent on its way from southern to Cockney. So no, the modern day English did not invent English, they altered it. If you want to hear what English sounded like, in fact, if you want to hear what English sounded like in London in the 1600s, give Shakespeare to a hillbilly. I have a whole video about that, but if you give Shakespeare to a hillbilly, they'll speak in perfect iambic pentameter, and it won't sound weird. It'll sound normal. Soft, what light through yonder window breaks? 'Tis the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair son. Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father. You done me wrong. Yonder. Those are all things that people spoke in the 1600s. So no, they didn't invent English. They've got their own weird little twist to it now. What else? A Welshman. Yes, you are a Welshman. Good for you. I don't know anything about Welsh. All right, so that's it. I got nothing else to say unless you want to ask me about more fun stuff, more trivia about, and the New York accent. The New York accent is the Dutch in 1600s. So if you take a Dutchman in the 1600s and then teach him English, he's going to sound like a New Yorker. That's why New York has that very specific dialect. All right, is that it? Nothing else? We're all done? See you guys later. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. I'll see you when I see you. Again, click the join button if you want to have members-only videos where I teach you about the 3 things and other important stuff you need to know. If you want to have a session with me where I'm not going to be your therapist, but I will connect with you and point you in the right direction of where you can go to get healed, you can go to freedom.thunderwizard.com. All right, that's it for me, guys. Have a good one. I'll talk to you all later. Let's see, what am I looking for? Where's my end screen? There it is.